Alrighty. Let's see here. Hi there. We got a guest today. This is Unthink Me and Justin, Idols of the Cave. We're doing
Hello,
a
my
little
friends.
little bit of a talk today about a topic that's near and dear to both of us. Time. You like how I put the gravitas on that?
According to Jean Gebser, space-time, the integration of space and time, that is the key of transcending into integral consciousness. Now, Wilbur kind of takes it from there, so it's
How much of like when you're doing Gebser, how much of it is the time talk? Like, is this like a chapter or is this like pretty central? I mean,
it's
yeah.
mostly the second. So there's two parts of the book. He does talk about it a little bit at the very beginning of part one. Part one is mostly going through the structures, how they work, the interrelationships, all that stuff. It's really
This
kind of
is
setting up.
ever-present origin, is that
Yes, yes,
okay?
sir. And then the second book is more or less about times. He calls it temporics. And temporics is just a fancy word for trying to integrate time into our spatial concepts. So
Yeah.
he spends a lot of significant time talking about it. And he says one of the key points, and you can tell that it's the main theme of our age because every domain, and if you want, I can give some examples, talks explicitly about time, the time problem. Now, they usually have different ways of encountering the time phenomenon.
So if it becomes kind of central, like the second book is almost entirely about time, right? So is this, yeah, you're saying that's kind of the integral age has this sort of what's changing about how we perceive time, perhaps?
Well, I guess to put it simply, the one thing that's changing about time is we are non-consciously realizing that the strictly rational, chronological, step-by-step, 826, 827, 828, that is no longer the only time form, if you will, that is present and efficacious. So there are many other different I guess time forms, if you want to call it that, and different temporal unfoldings. So, for example, just to list a few, if you want, I can get into some more. So, not just time as a quantity, but let's think of time as a quality. And I actually thought about this in our last conversation. You said you spent a lot of time managing your energy levels, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized what you're doing is you've realized of time as a quality. Time spent doing something is felt. It's not just this empty container that we move through, like the clock example, 827, 828. So think about very basic examples in your life. Like maybe you're a middle school or high school, elementary school. The principal calls in, Adam, you gotta come to the office. No one knows why you're in there. You might get in trouble, right? So that 2 minute walk to the principal's office, that's not an empty container. That's not some neutral space. You feel with all of your body, all of your internal constitution, the qualities of fear, angst, dread. You experience these. Think about it when you lose your wallet, right? That moment, think about, let's say I lose my wallet for 30 seconds. Those 29 seconds are going to be very worrisome. I'm going to experience the qualities of worry. These are the qualities that charge the present moment and give it or offer it its distinctive stamp. But let's say I lose my wallet, 29 seconds. Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. This is terrible. Boom, found it. It's underneath the bush. Well, that 1 second, now the quality has changed, right? So we went from 29 seconds of fear, panic, dread, and now it's 10, 15 seconds of elation, relief. These are the qualities that charge the moment. So I think when you say I'm managing my energy levels, what you're kind of non-consciously realizing is no, there's a quality charging the present moment. You have to decide, am I able to match that quality? So in a less serious sense, you think about when you go to the grocery store and you put your bags away in your car and you have your cart, right? And someone says you should put that cart away and you say I don't have the time for this. Well, of course you have the time for it if time is only a quantifiable unit, right? But that you've got all the time in the world. But that's not what you're referencing when you say that you don't have the energy for the qualities. The qualities needed would be attention, focus, even if it's just for 10 seconds. And in that moment, you just don't have it because I'm tired of putting the card away, right? So time as a quality, and then there's time as a quantity. I don't know if you want to stop there or I can keep going with some other
No, that's
examples.
pretty good. Yeah, I want to comment a little bit. Like, I don't know, I'm hanging out a lot at a warehouse, and we a lot, me and the ladies, we talk a lot about like, the future, and it's like, Adam, where would you like to be in 5 years? Like, what's your dream? What's your fantasy? What are you heading towards? And then we ask a lot of questions like that, and for so many people in a kind of conventional life today, their answer is usually locational. They're like, oh, I would just love to be in India. Well, I would just love to be in South America, climbing around, and it's sort of like a fantasy. It's like an escape from where they are. When I talk to them, I'm always talking about a job. You know, it's not a location. It's like, yeah, well, where do you want to be? Like, oh, I don't know, wherever, wherever animators go, wherever
Yeah.
voice actors would be needed. So probably like LA, something like that. Although everything's remote now, maybe I'll just live in Montana. But it's not locational, it's like, because yeah, it's not, time to me is like what you're doing.
Mhm.
It's not the container in which you do it. And I think that as I've like opened up myself and learned about myself and become myself more, what I've discovered is, um, unlike a lot of people who can just find an interest and that's what they do with their time. It's like, oh, I fill up my time with that, and then everything will
Mhm.
kind of go all right. I can't do that because in 2 years of doing that, I'll branch off and I'll go, wait, I want to spend my time doing that because I like learning. And the problem, that's awesome. It's wonderful. I've learned a ton. It's made me happy. It's filled me with all sorts of joy and pleasures of this world. But it sucks in the sense that I, uh, if I want to play guitar all the time, I have to play guitar all the time. And that means if I don't play all guitar all the time, I'll never really be the guitar guy. That's the
Mhm.
thing I do. And that's kind of what you want to do when you play guitar. You want to be the guitar guy. You don't just want to be someone who plays a few songs and chords. I have a couple things ready. I could sub in your band. You want to like shred anytime anyone looks at you and asks you to or wants you to or pays you to. So I have like 25 things now that I don't get to do with my life that I'm super fascinated with. And if I had multiplicity clones of myself, they'd all be doing all those things. So managing my time is a lot about like making those really hard decisions about what I'm not gonna do this season or what I call this habit
Mhm.
period.
Mhm.
So it's a bit of a bittersweet thing, but the wonderful thing is that that means all I ever do is exactly what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I pay for that too, but it's actually it has been true my entire adult life. I've pretty much never had the attitude of like, well, I have to do this because,
Mhm.
yeah, everyone has responsibilities in this life. I just didn't take on any responsibility, and then I was just a free agent in this world. And I'm so mad how little time I have. I'm so mad
Mhm.
how short a human life is that you can't live forever like a vampire and just bust out a violin and just shred on it. But you're so good that you only have to do that for like 10 minutes in
Yeah.
in a given month.
Yeah.
That's how I'd like to be. That's kind of my fantasy for myself.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
at any given point, I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm trying something I've never tried before. I'm learning how to do it. And the moment I get past that curve where you're like, yeah, I got the hang of this. I could do this no problem. That's when I start like, hmm, what do I really want to do? Like I'm not doing enough physical stuff. I want to learn how to fight. Let's do that. Let's
Yeah.
fight. Be a fighter.
Wait,
Some
so is this a? This sounds like not. It sounds like a bad thing if you do want to be, like you said, that kind of guitar master. If you want to be Slash, right? Because then, yes, you're doing all these things. But it seems like to me, what's happening is you're almost kind of caught between two simultaneous forms of time. When on one hand, like you said, time is so short, right? Time in a measurable sense is so short, but also at the same time you're referencing time as a quality because you're referencing things you want to do, right? Things that positive qualities are charged when you engage in this experience. So I don't want to say this.
And I realized a long time ago for myself, for my own temperament, the fully managed like boot camp life only works for a minute. I just don't like it. I don't want to live that
Mhm.
life. When
Yeah,
your schedule's crammed tight with
yeah.
everything. I just don't have much quality to the things I do when it's on such a tight timeline.
No, that's a great point. That's a big point I try to get to my subscribers because what you do when you stick with the exclusively mental, rational form of time, which you just laid out, it's exactly that. Time becomes a spatial container that you kill or fill, and you fill it almost inevitably with like you're just kind of reaching for stuff like you said. It doesn't really it's not there's no time as a quality here. I'm just doing this endless productivity gains and I'm just kind of running this rat race, but I'm never slowing down to think, well, what do I want to spend my time doing? And then unfortunately to me, in my personal opinion, people can disagree. I think that's almost a bit of a wasted life. But that's just my personal opinion. That's one of the perils of employing an exclusively spatial quantified mode of time where you keep filling all your days with useless nonsense for the most part. And after a while, that just kind of catches up with you. And now it's like, well,
Useless nonsense would be like dopamine pursuit, or I mean,
not
what is useless
maybe
nonsense?
that's a good point. Maybe I shouldn't have said useless nonsense, but think of your
Like things that won't accumulate anything, maybe, or
or things not that things that accumulate only the most surface level gains. Like so you're trying to
yeah,
get um, your brain processing going, or you're trying to get your neurons firing. You're not tending to your soul. You know what I mean? You're trying to do brain puzzles, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you don't like doing it and you keep forcing yourself to do it, stop doing it, right? Take a break. Which I think goes to your point, because kind of like the point I was saying with the two simultaneous forms of time. On one hand, we have that time as a spatial container, that sort of expansive field that we move through in terms of quantified time. And you were saying like life is short in that sense, and I guess it is, but because it's so expansive and because it allows, let's say, 80, 90 years, so time as a quantity allows that much time for the soul and all of its variance and all of its plentitude to be revealed, which I think is what's happening with your time as a quality, because you're moving through time as a quantity, but you're moving from thing to thing. Now my soul wants this. Now my soul wants that. Now my soul wants this. So both of these are present and efficacious, and combined with the other forms of time, which we can get into if you want, combine, I think, to create a real human experience. And I think once you become conscious of this, they can be sort of channeled for healthy, virtuous ends. But sorry, I'm talking too much.
no, you're great. This is good. I'm enjoying this. And I wanted to mention too, I just did a video on my calendar system. I made up an alternative clock and calendar. So a lot of these topics are still pretty fresh in my mind. The next video, I might actually just like slam it out after we do this,
Mhm.
but I'm going to do a video on the integral creation myth. You know, what
Mhm.
kind of creation myth should
Yeah.
you have about your reality? And so time has been like really big on my mind. And I wanted to maybe just kick open a couple more doors, you know, before
Sure.
we start,
Yeah.
getting organized with it. Um, I suppose it's sort of like the Fight Club philosophy, but my mom always put it like, I want to live like I want to live as though in a week I get hit by a Mack truck, and nothing that I'm planning for in the future will ever matter. It's not going to happen. But I do have right now still, and I do have tomorrow, and so this gets into a really interesting. It's definitely a dichotomy. It's definitely something to break apart because you can't really, you want to be a little middle way on this
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Because
So her
yeah, Ant and
future,
Grasshopper
she's
is
kind of hoping the future plans blow up, but not in a way that's, destructive, just kind of a freak thing where she can be open, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's an existentialist thing. It's like to live each moment as though it were your last, to engage with the present as though it actually matters and it is actually remarkable and precious and scarce.
Oh, well, you do that by recognizing that the future and past are integrated within the present moment, and
Yeah,
that they're already here. And you, as evidenced by your was that your mom? You said,
that's her. Yeah, I'm more like this, what you're describing. I see
yeah.
it
Well,
as
what she said,
really powerful stuff.
maybe one day her future plans can sort of um, be affected or change in a way. Well, think about what's happening, right? The future is alive and present and efficacious in the present moment. It's actually shaping her present moment. It's shaping the qualities that charge the present moment. So the way you sort of consciously um, heal yourself from this, because I've had problems, trust me, as on a personal level, man, I think I hold the record for someone who just like I get anxious about my future. When I was going through a rough time, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the future because I thought I was like a failure or a loser or whatever. The future itself, even though in a physical sense, right, in a time as a quantity, it hasn't been realized obviously because it's not the future. But in my consciousness, which is how humans operate, it is real and it's effective, and it completely destroyed me. So recognize that your future conceptions, hopes, dreams, as well as past experiences, thoughts, memories are shaping your present moment. And you can consciously manipulate these things. So you can say, well, why am I taking, what is it about the future and its ordered nature that I'm sort of rebelling against here? Why is it? Am I trying to tend my soul? Am I just not happy with my future prospects? If that's the case, do I have to recognize that, they're really not deterministic and they're
Well,
not
okay,
set in stone?
let's dwell on this a little bit because I'm kind of getting what you're saying. So like, okay, let's say I'm unemployed and I
Mhm.
want a job, but all the
Mhm.
jobs available are kind of crappy, so I want to work towards something that's really meaningful, but being unemployed and broke and everything, it's really hard to stay on that train of that vision like, yeah, I can do this, no problem. And it gets to a sense, this is what kind of how I'm interpreting what you just said. It gets to a point where you actually start to not believe that you can do it. It almost seems like, hey, there's something like wrong with me. I can't actually get to where I'm trying to get. So I'm like, not only do I not get to be there, but also I suck and I'm incapable of getting to where I want to be. And so I'm doomed to always, the whole thing of my life is that I can't be where I want to be, and I'm stuck here in the meantime. And then eventually I just die during that.
Mhm. Yeah, so the reason you're stuck
I
here in
think a
the
lot of people
meantime.
in America are feeling that
Oh,
way. A lot of people feel that
oh,
way. I think that's
oh, I agree. I
quiet
agree.
desperation of our Western culture.
No, I agree. But the reason when you say stuck here in the moment, that has negative connotations, right?
For sure.
Because you're
Yeah.
stuck. Okay, well, that negative connotation is created and conditioned by your conceptions of the future. One, if I were to saying to that to a unemployed person, I would remind them that time is not a flat straight line and that things change just like that, right? I'm pretty sure people on September 10th, 2001 had no vastly conception of two planes coming in and hitting those buildings, right? And then the
Yeah.
entire world changed. So each new event is a moment, which if you want, we can get into that later. Um,
One of my friends articulated that as life is non-linear. That was like her big takeaway in
yeah,
in her experience of life is that like,
yeah.
yeah, you think you're gonna be somewhere, but then a whole different thing that you didn't really think was gonna happen then just changed the whole plan, and now that's all still kind of like ka-junk, ka-junk, ka-junk. There's so like a plan, but it's not the same plan anymore. It can't be. That's kind of how it actually goes, you know.
No, I completely agree. That's why Gebser places a big focus on quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics has this idea of it's exactly that breaking out of time as this purely flat linear line. Quantum mechanics is each new moment is a distinct whole unto itself that is separate from the one that preceded it and that will proceed it. So kind of like life itself, right? One day, September 11th, I'm walking into New York to go to a job. Boom, something completely new and unexpected happens. It completely changes the course of my life, right? This is why people look back on their lives and they say that one moment I talked to, my future wife changed my life because each new moment is a new event because the world is an integral phenomenon. If you want, I can get into that more specifically, but don't fall into this futuristic nihilistic despair. I trust me, as someone who lived with that,
Oh
that
yeah,
was not
I'm
good.
just
Yeah.
laying out on the personal sense. I feel like this is the best time in my life, which
Hmm.
is weird because I'm at an age where people are usually like starting to worry about I guess the end of their life more.
Yeah.
And I'm just not. I'm not concerned with it. I am suffering a lot, but I want to be. I feel like I'm right where I want to be. I'm taking on
Hmm.
suffering
Nice.
gladly, and it's like what the heck else would I want to do? I don't want
Yeah.
to. I've never wanted to be like comfortable.
Yeah.
I like learning. What I enjoy in life is learning. As long as I'm doing that, I feel like I'm in the right place.
Hmm.
I do have anxiety from time to time, which is more just like a symptom of how my brain works. And that anxiety tends to feel like I'll have prolonged periods where I have this inescapable feeling of just more than usual that everyone dislikes me, that I'm
Yeah.
bad at everything.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be able to say the right thing in any case. I
Hmm.
might as well not be around. And that just persists and then it goes away. So during that time, I really tighten up the schedule. I really stick to people I closely trust, and I don't. I have to make sure and dance a lot. I go out dancing a lot, and that kind of
Hmm.
helps with the rhythm of things. But a big part of my relationship with time and how it's like matured perhaps over like the last 10 years is that I'm a lot more tolerant of the flex and flow of myself, that my energy levels will propel me to things and they won't. I can't trust that. I can't depend on that. It will go away, and then I have what I've built and I just do as the best that I can. and there's a lot of downsizing, and there's a lot of inflation and contraction in terms
Yes.
of the stuff on the docket, the stuff
Yeah.
that I must do.
No, that was great. And in many ways, you touched on what we call mythical temperacy, which is this sort of cycling between good and bad, good times, bad times, right? This is kind of
Yeah.
it. It's not that the clock time doesn't exist. It just, this also exists. But yeah, that's like a really perfect example of you just sort of recognizing the qualities. And also recognize, this is a very intelligent insight you made, is that these things come and go. This is why I believe Joseph Campbell said evil is a temporal apparition. All of
Ooh.
life, all of life appears and disappears in moments. It's not a static phenomenon like the rationalists will have you say. It's not a linear phenomenon. Things just appear and disappear. And I think this is important to remember. If you have maybe an anger problem, if you're someone like me who maybe has a forgive but don't forget attitude, kind of, I struggle sometimes a little bit with forgiveness. you know I was angry. Let's say I was angry at, I don't know, my dad 6 months ago. Okay, but in the 6 months' time, the forgiveness, the internal latency and potency, has had its own temporal unfolding, right? And it sort of ripened. And in the moment, I'm talking to my dad and I said, okay, I forgive you, right? If I was a rationalist ego, crazy ego, I would say, no, screw you. You wronged me. And I'm just, no one can dare deign wrong Justin because I'm
Until
just a
that
good.
switch is flipped
Yes.
back into so that we're
Yes.
equal. Yeah.
Yes, but that's the thing. Let these things develop sort of naturally. Maybe in relationships, your wife is upset, your wife or your girlfriend's mad. Let her blow it off. You don't have to take it right there. Let her get it out. If she's explaining her frustrations, her anger, her thing, don't interrupt. Let it all out, because then if you interrupt, it's going to stay in here and then it's going to come out at other times. You have to let the temporal unfoldings of all these things unfold naturally. That's very important, not according to the clock time. There's more examples, but I don't want to go on too much.
I wanted to imagine, this is a little bit bizarre, but it's like, okay, imagine like here you are, right? But let's say you're not here, you're out so far in space that you literally can't see any stars. You're so
Hmm.
far out in space that there's nothing at all. And you're not there because how the hell would you be there? But,
Yeah.
you know, take a picture of that, see that. And this, I'm arguing in this state, if that's what there is no time and there is no space because there's nothing in relation to you that changes. So there's no
Hmm.
time and there's
Yeah.
nothing in relation to you. So there's no space.
Yeah.
But if you appear as a marble and
Yeah.
then another marble appears, now there's time and space
Yeah.
because there's a relationship between two
Hmm.
things. I can push it away, and now time's passing as it moves further away. And I'm seeing that space is bigger. Space is exactly as big as the distance between me and the only other thing in space. And that applies. I'm saying this is how reality actually is. This is how consciousness actually is that we are that mind in an empty space with nothing around it forever. But here we are, and there's stuff around everywhere. So we have this perception of time and space. We're in this moment.
Yeah.
Like this moment could just swap out for another moment, and here we are in that moment. It
Hmm.
never does that. It's always this one, but it could, and here we are. It's always now, and that happens as long as there's anyone regarding it.
Yeah, the state you described, it almost sounds very similar to what Gebser would describe as origin, this sort of pre-spacelessness, pre-timelessness, that consciousness state, kind of like you describe, out of which space and time derived. So space and time are just kind of these relatively shallow parts compared to that state you described. And it is fascinating to hear. And it's very interesting, by the way, another insight you just made: space and time, space time. As you beautifully pointed out, you can't really tell that time has occurred or time is a factor at all unless you're appealing to space. Like, for example, I remember helping my mother move, and I cleaned out my garage, or her garage, and I found my old bicycle when I was like 6 or 7. That thing was so much rust. I mean, it was completely destroyed. The oxygen destroyed it. So very clearly, time has passed since I last used it now, and we can tell by the rust, which is a spatial object or an object in space.
The other thing that was peculiar when I was doing that thought experiment is thinking about scale. Scale is not a dimension to us. We just imagine zoom in forever, and it's the same because we're relative. I am this big and I shrink, and I'm still this big, but everything else is bigger now.
Mm.
But weirdly, reality isn't kind of like that because
Yeah.
all the stuff in reality has set lengths so that we have like a
Mhm.
speed of light and we have like a Planck length and we have, the various sizes of electron orbits and things are set in to reality. Like there isn't other stuff at a different scale. So like if you were to shrink to a certain size, there would be a size where, around the size of like a molecule, you would now be nonsensical. You can't exist at that scale. So it isn't just a straight up shrinking. There's rules at different scales, and there's almost there seems to be a boundary. There
Mhm.
seems to be, this is a great question, a biggest and a littlest. It isn't actually turtles all the way down and all the way up. It
Mhm.
looks that way. I mean, what does it wrap back around? Like if you
Yeah,
go all the way and look at
this
the
is why
vibration, it's actually the universe.
the 4D, the prototypical symbol for 4D consciousness is the sphere. So kind of like what you're saying, does it wrap back around? The reason why it's a sphere is because remember, we live through multiple layers of space and multiple layers of time simultaneously. Well, if past and future, let's just take that as an example. If that didn't belong in a sphere, it would just move further and further, and its efficaciousness would grow less powerful and less powerful. But obviously, that's not the case. So it seems that it comes back here and it affects past and future. They don't just go away, they come back and affect. And I think it's super cool that obviously the Earth is shaped like a sphere. So I think that's a very interesting symbol. It's interesting. I might challenge you a little bit. I agree that space has limits. I don't think time has limits. Because when you say light speed has a set duration, we'll say. From what perspective? From the perspective of the person on Earth observing, or for the perspective on the person in space moving at light speed? Because those two seem to be two different.
That's the trick here. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a part of the
yeah,
wraparound trick too.
yeah,
It's part of how they
yeah,
made the Matrix.
yeah. I'll be honest. Science is not anything I know
Uh,
from science. I learned from
I am a
Gebster.
fringe scientist. I have my own unique ideas about this stuff. So I'm a little bit aware. I am aware of like pop science stuff. And I had brought up this concept that I think as an integral theorist, we talk about cosmic evolution or eros. And I call it time zero. From the Big Bang, from our present, it's always from our perspective as human beings, as individuals, as culture. You have to factor that in when you get into relativistic stuff.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, we do see a beginning in the Big Bang. And within this universe, which is the Big Bang, it's a later stage of the Big Bang, we're in our own self contained time, at
Hmm.
least from anyone's perspective, inside or outside. There's no relationship between our time in here and any potential time that could happen outside of it or inside of a supermassive black hole. Beyond that event
Hmm.
horizon, it's got its own time in there. It's
Hmm.
doing its own time. We're doing our own time out here. And there's no real information relationship between those two. So it's almost like a supermassive black hole from the outside is a black hole from the inside is a
Yeah.
big bang maturing into a universe. But
Yeah.
over time zero, we see uh, complexity increasing, novelty increasing. We see there's clear phases of time zero. Even though at any particular time things do what things do, molecules accrete into substances, substances beget life at a certain point, and then life begets mind, which is capable of even caring what time is. And so for some reason, we see this progression of stacking levels. Whatever's the bottom level, we can't even see. There's turtles all the way down, but something like a quark turns into something like a subatom, turns into bands together into an atom, bands together into a molecule. Those molecules are now all the substance of the cosmos, the stuff that we see out there. It's all substance as far as we can tell. And then in this one case, we get another level up where the substance starts moving around and eating itself and mating with itself and doing the whole life thing all of a sudden. So we have some like fundamental riddles here that are introduced to us as levels. They're levels of the stacking of reality. And there's
Hmm.
really nothing going on besides that within time zero, within so like the fundamental belief of what we call level seven, teal meme, integral consciousness this particular version of integral, because integral for us is levels like 6, 7, 8, about.
Mhm.
But this particular version, it's reality itself is a stack of levels. I'm a stack of levels. Everything, that's what this is. It's a stack of levels. It's
Mhm.
evolving over time's arrow. And as you go through levels, each level kind of perceives time in a different way. So your relationship with time is deepening as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's completely in alignment with Gebser because magic structure, that's timelessness. And I think, I
A
don't think Gebser,
cycle, like it's like
yeah,
a
that's
cycle. Yeah.
mythical temporicity, coming and going, beginning and ending, kind of like that yin and yang behind you,
Seasons.
right?
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, mental quantified time. And now, of course, we have time freedom, the achronon, A's being without, chronon being, of course, time freedom or chronology. Um, I guess the point you're making about the levels, that's true as long as we make clear that, at least what I would say is all of these levels are simultaneously present. And efficacious. That really is the integral insight
That's
because
for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
that's for sure. Yeah.
integral to me is about reconjoining all that has been artificially divided by rational thought. And in doing that is by recognizing the simultaneous layers of space and time that we move through. In space, we have the consciousness structures. The magic, pre-rational, is always present and efficacious. Same with the mythical, same with the mental, now with the irrational. They're
Yeah.
all there. And then with time, we have all the other ones, right? You have quantity, quality, rhythm, meter, temporal processing, all this stuff. And that really is the key. I mean, that
And
is the
let
key
me, yeah,
insight.
we totally agree on that. Level 7 is all about the integration and
Hmm.
appreciation of all the levels as
Yeah.
being fully dignified whole parts, wholes
Yes.
and parts, both.
Yes.
But like so to get into why they're different and why levels matter and what they do, it's like we have level 4, your mythic level,
Hmm.
Amber Meme mythic membership. When
Hmm.
you're at that level, when civilization's at that level, it can only do what it does. It
Yeah.
can only make kingdoms that
Yeah.
obey a god thing, and
Hmm.
the priests tell them what the god thing wants, and it writes in the books. How the drill goes,
Yeah.
and you're only educated into that. You can't
Hmm.
do rationality. It's not available to you
That's what I
until
was
that
making.
happens.
I was making that point when we were talking earlier about how a lot of atheists they make or I should say rationalist atheists, they make a mistake of imposing the rational way of doing things onto
Yeah,
a man at a particular point that simply did not have that. When they say that the gods were just figments or creations that came about because people couldn't have a rational scientific explanation of an object in question, they fundamentally misunderstand what was happening. Uh, there was never a need for a rational explanation. No one
no,
even knew
yeah,
it. Like you said, no one even knew what it was. They were
like
never
that they
needed.
knew of. Yeah, according
Yeah,
to
and
their
they already
stuff.
had sufficient knowledge, according to them. When they're
Yeah,
walking through the storm and the thunder is going, that is Zeus. Zeus is an active presence. It's not a symbol. Symbols come later with rationality. That's an active presence, and they know it's an active presence through intuition, which is essentially just becoming intimately aware of the qualities revealed during the experience of encounter. That's really all intuition is.
yeah,
And
and these individuals might range
yeah.
these Greek individuals might range in how much they, really. Hey, Greek guy, like, what do you really think? I know you're saying a lightning bolt is Zeus hurling
Mhm.
anger at the world.
Yeah.
I'm not going to explain electricity. I can't explain electricity. So,
Yeah.
okay, but what do you really you think it's a
Yeah.
guy? Like a big how big
Hmm.
is he? How big do you imagine him? And then you'd probably have a range of people saying, "Well, it's not. It's kind of just what I'm saying is clouds hurl these angry things at the world."
Yeah.
And that's the fact of the matter. That is what's
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah.
It seems pretty angry to me. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how that whether the storm is viewed as Zeus or whether the storm is viewed as a scientifically originary and explainable event, the point is there's a pre-rational and irrational intuition that helps. And then when combined and integrated with rationality, it's a really great thing. So if I'm an irrational and pre-rational man, if I'm man in the what Gebser would describe as the pre-perspectival world, and let's say I'm shepherding my sheep and I'm walking through the field, boom, loud cracking thunder, thunderstorm roars. Immediately and intuitively, immediately, I know that Zeus is angry and he will not permit me to pass. So I am going to go turn my sheep around and do my own thing. I'm going to act in alignment with the wishes, desires, and needs of the active gods. Of course, rationally, we know this is all silly, right? It's not Zeus throwing thunderbolts. That's ridiculous. Nonetheless, if let's say I'm running a soccer practice, I'm the coach, we're playing, boom, same thunder, super loud. I know intuitively that that thunderstorm is so great that it is going to cancel this practice. And if I don't, it's going to become danger. Now I invoke rationality to impose space between myself and the world for a quick second and think, okay, well, what's the best possible strategy here? Am I going to the cars? Well, the cars seem kind of far away. So maybe I should go into that building. That building doesn't have a ton of shelter. Ah, that's what it is. We'll go to that other building behind the building because then we can go indoors, right? So notice the integration here. It's all here. So all the rationalists who like to dismiss intuition, you've made a huge mistake. You need to rely on it more in integration with your rational thoughts.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
Every level has a strict mode where they're kind of broken because they refuse to see anything by and this is what level 7 understands. This is what integral understands is when I raise my family scientists, that child, when I explain how lightning works, they don't understand it scientifically, and they won't for a real. I don't understand it scientifically at my ripe old age, but I do know because my culture is scientific. I do know that my opinions about, well, clouds kind of rub up on each other and that generates static electricity. So now you have like a different charge up there and different temperature. And so that has to get discharged. So it's going to go to the ground. And that's about what I know about it. And that's not sufficient as a scientific explanation for what's happening. But I'm relying mythically, level 4, I'm using myth, but it's a myth of level 5 now. It's a bastardized version of rationality that
it's an integration of it. You have the intuition,
and we honor that.
combined
We
with
embrace
rationality.
that.
Yeah, it's fine. We don't need. And the thing is, like, you don't need to be a scientist necessarily because you just you establish quality limits, right? Qualitative threshold or tolerance limits. If you're a scientist building the Empire State Building, you can't have your foundation be 5 inches off, right? That just can't happen. But if I'm dropping a bomb on Nagasaki, I could be a mile off my target. It's not going to make a difference. So it's this sort of mix between intuition and rationality that combine that create, in my opinion, tolerance limits.
And this is a great test of that too. This is a great test of that. Go up to someone and be like, "Hey, I think the Earth is flat. Convince me, like science. You can use tricks." Yeah. Convince me that the Earth is spherical. And you'll find like they're mostly just relying on the credibility of science. They actually, they can make some arguments, but they couldn't convince you. They couldn't convince a court of law because they aren't real. Like this is how you get out of that scientism and that strict level 5 is you realize that you're just trusting the authority of other people, which is how myth works. Until if you have a PhD in science, then at least that one thing you can say, I'm the guy who knows, and everyone will listen to me. I have the creds of level 5. I have a PhD in science. And for me, that's sufficient. I'm like, okay, as far as regards how lightning works, I trust that person. And I'm going to try and say the closest thing to what they're saying about how lightning works.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It totally reminds me of what Joseph Campbell writes in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, drawing the connection between the present day doctor and the antiquity shaman. The shaman, who more or less is the healer. They're both the authoritative healers.
Doctors over time is hilarious.
Yeah, in fairness to people, like I would be one of those people who can't convince, right? One of the things, I don't want to get too political here, but one of the reasons why I generally strayed more towards the right was because I always tried to acknowledge the inherent limitations of man. And one of those and the world. And one of those limitations is our limitations in knowledge. Like we just can't have knowledge of all things at once. It's just not how we're constituted. So in fairness to those guys, I mean, it's like, well, what do you want them to do? Like it's good that we have authoritative hierarchies as long as they're not being abused, right? But you are correct, though. You don't want to do this sort of scientism, trust under no questions asked. I'll just trust what you say. It's nothing like that. That's silly. There's a qualitative balance.
And just
to be found.
as we're able to conceptualize this as levels, and we kind of get what a rational stage is and what a mythic stage is, we can start to look at because prior to that you can't really look at this stuff, but you can look at the relationships between them, and you can realize that like. I can understand each level from a different level.
Yeah.
So that, and in fact, I do. I understand every level from whatever level I'm understanding it from at any given time. and we're
That's yeah.
open-minded as hell because we realize there's levels beyond my level of
Yeah.
understanding in every way, on every vector, in every dimension. There's so much that I don't know. What I know is just this tiny, it's the I inside, it's this little thing here in the Tao.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
No,
all
I
I know.
completely agree. All these people, all these rationalists who, I mean, it's the classic rationalist mistake. Classic rationalist mistake. Take the whole, sector apart from it. That's what's quantifiably measurable and consciously known, and treat the part as if it's the whole. And what you and I understand is exactly what you just said. We have a very tiny dot of knowledge about this world. And the reason why people think that they have it all is because they've sectored off and ignored exactly that which would prevent them from making a statement like that. Once you acknowledge all this stuff outside the measurable and the consciously known, yeah, you get a little more open to these things like, oh, yeah, well, maybe I don't have as much knowledge as I thought I did. I thought that was fascinating. Your point about the levels and understanding, that's almost like exactly what Gebser says. He says there is no conscious versus unconscious. There is no subconscious. Well, one, because it's like we've repeated a trillion times in this video, simultaneously present and efficacious. So it's not hidden below. It's not, because notice the spatialization here, which is, of course, what rationality was built on. We have a space, we have a line. Above
Yeah.
here is consciousness,
Yeah.
down here is stuff down here. No, 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 no. It's all here, it's all active, it's all going. And he says that the present mode of consciousness, the present structure essentially that you're operating from, is the one that allows you to understand the previous ones. So it kind of gives the appearance of a subconscious because of that, but it's not. It's kind of like you were saying. You use that to understand the ones before.
I have an interesting way of understanding right and left, because I try to think of anything in terms of like, I want to steel man this. So the way I'm seeing it is if I go all the way to the right, I'm looking at the world like, okay, I'm going to die. And on my way to dying, I'm going to suffer. So I want to die later and I want to suffer less.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm going to love people and I'm going to want to do that for them too. That's freaking reasonable as heck, right?
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
I see what right is.
Yeah.
Left is here and they're going like, "Oh my God, I could do anything.
Yeah.
We could dance this whole time. Like we could build a tower to the heavens. We could make up art and you could do anything here before you die, before you suffer and die. When you're not suffering and
Yeah.
dying, you get to do anything and we're so free. And why doesn't everyone thinks we have to like, it is just, again, it's kind of Apollo and Dionysus, ant and
Yeah.
grasshopper. That's my steel man. That's me saying these are left and right in me. And I totally embrace those. I'm such a cynical bastard. And I'm
Yeah.
also such a lovey-dovey hippie. I'm both of those completely. How do you explain that to people today, you know?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I came from like the right politically. So as I try to break out of this right left dichotomy, I'm like actively trying to sort of tend to those left elements, the unconscious, the human elements, emotion, the soul, stuff like that, while also retaining my rational faculties.
And
you just kind of have to live it, man.
I
You
can
know?
frame it in a more grounded way. It's kind of my relationship with my father is he genuinely, he like, we've gotten into this point of like, so you're just here to be happy? That's your point in life is you want to have a good, happy life? I'm like, yeah, totally. And you don't just have to work? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't seem to. No. Because I'm pretty happy and I haven't
Yeah.
worked much.
Yeah.
I just have done whatever the hell thing I want and I'm like
Yeah.
doing great. I'm like so full and rich and it just makes no sense. But like, what if you see a pretty girl that you want and you don't now you don't have any money or anything? I'm like, oh, that's okay. She's pretty. What a cool girl.
Yeah, and if she loves you, she won't care.
Like,
Right?
what are we talking about? You know, like, don't you want to
You-
don't
you
you want
have
to
a
fly
more-
on an airplane? Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
you
that
have
would
a
be cool.
more open philosophy. Like it's a more open, like that. This is what I'm trying to say. Like each
He's
new
not
moment-
wrong. I mean, he's not wrong, and neither am I. Neither of us is wrong. He's
Yeah,
just more conservative, and I'm more liberal.
Yeah, I think, or maybe better yet, from the integral perspective, both are right and wrong simultaneously,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
both
yeah.
have half of the whole.
Yeah, they
So I
could
guess
use
in a way-
balance.
Yeah, you're both on to something. This
And
is why
I think,
always-
I mean,
yeah.
there's a matter of types and human diversity too. It can be advantageous that like you have people who are on totally different sides of the fence that work together because they need each other.
Oh yeah,
We
Oh,
need
yeah.
little goofballs running around making us all laugh, you know?
Yeah.
But who's like, hey, Be a goofball when you grow up. Make everyone laugh, or else we'll all be miserable here. Just be
Yeah.
silly and stupid, and if people are laughing, you're doing fine.
That's why men and women are so great, right? You usually have this. Now, I'm not trying to posit any sort of strict gender role. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm saying like generally as a principle.
Real quick, let me just jump in case I missed it before. Don't know where we are right now, but wherever we are, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to Unthink Me and Idols of the Cave. Wherever you're at, check out the other one. Justin does very similar thing to me. We're just sharing our truth with the world, and it often looks like teaching philosophy. So,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of. We're talking. We started getting into left and right. We started getting into gender and male female, and I want to do a whole damn session with you on left and right and on gender. But let's carry this through and get back to time too.
Sure. Yeah. What you're sitting behind in front of is a perfect example. Men and women, male and female, are polar complements. You can tell, in the yin and the yang, of course, in the white half you get the black dot, and the black dot, or in the black half you
Yeah.
get the white dot. Well, that to me very obviously seems like the anima and the animus. Right. So I guess the integral insight is whether it wants to be viewed from that perspective or viewed from as we kind of view it, the Dionysian Apollonian perspective.
Yeah.
Integrate these things. Recognize that they both have their own logic. They both have their own efficient and deficient aspects. Consciously integrate them, and you will live a better life. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. And I wanted to get to get a little bit more personal about it. This is just sort of an observation about my relationship with time. Is that I worked at Subway. That was like one of my first jobs, and I worked there for like 5 years. So I don't usually work at jobs that long. So by the end of that sucker, I'd be like, like people would be like standing there slack-jawed like I'm in Cocktail or something, and I'm just working. And you have to work that in with the customer service. So I'm just like, hi there, what kind of sandwich do you want? And they'd be like, oh, let me do like a meatball. Great. What kind of cheese on that? Like, oh, I was
Yeah.
okay. And then cool. Do you want to toast? It's like I'm like ahead of them, but I'm also customer service, so I'm slowing it down. I'm
Hmm.
metering my social on one hand,
Hmm.
and this is what I wanted to talk about. At a certain age, maybe it's my male, maybe it's how I express male, but I realized what I find to be that kind of manly thing in myself is that I realized practice. I realized that every single thing you do, you can do it in a way where you'll get better and better at it as you do it. And you can also do it not in that way. You can go play frisbee. This is how I play frisbee golf. For some reason, I don't apply this to frisbee golf. Every single time I go, I don't care how I throw. It lands in the trees. I don't really care whether I find it or not. I just walk through the woods and have a good time and throw a stupid disc, and it hurts my hand, and I like give up halfway through. You know,
That's cool.
but almost everything else, like later in life, I worked at a big, huge cannabis factory, and I was doing efficiency of process stuff. So that was like such a good fit for my brain.
Yeah.
I would go and do somebody's job for like 2 days, like 8-hour shifts for 2 days. And by the end of that, I'd have all these little things. Like if you just like put a piece of tape over here, then you can just quickly like do that. And if you turn this thing around backwards, just efficiency stuff.
Yeah.
Because like that's power. That's power over time. Everything you do, you can do it better, faster, stronger, stronger.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can,
Right.
you can do the Daft Punk thing. But a lot of people also see that as sort of a toxic relationship to time because they're like, well, you're not, just live in the now, live in the moment. It's like, but I can get faster and faster at living in the moment. Arnold Schwarzenegger told me to sleep faster.
That's kind of touches on what we were going on earlier. I think again, we got to I'm not saying you're doing this, but we got to get rid of this either or, either purely in the now or pure efficiency. I know you're not doing that, but I kind of agree with that critique.
Because you might find flow in that too. You might be a
Exactly.
speed runner.
Or God forbid we find qualitative balance, right? I mean, my God. The problem is when you master efficiency, like we were talking about, is you're treating time exclusively in the rational sense as a spatial container. And then, of course, if it's a spatial container, it has to be filled, right? It has to be either filled or killed. This is exactly what Gebser warns us against.
Right.
The exclusive employment of this time. Now, again,
sure.
there's a reasonable middle ground. I don't think what you're doing there, that seems pretty reasonable to me. Like you're just finding these little, kind of like you said, quantify time hacks. You know what I mean? It's not a bad thing necessarily.
Literally on the clock that I made up. So you have 10 hours that are like hours. That they're called sessions, but they're like hours. You know, it's 10 sessions. And you have one that I don't know how long it is. It's timeless. And that during that time, just be there. Don't worry
Yeah.
about when it is. You're good.
No, that's true. Like think of it
Timeless.
like if you're at work. Let's say you're at work and you got a new girlfriend, and I work 9 to 5, and you can kind of prepare yourself in the morning. You say, look, from 9 to 5, I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be efficient. I'm going to get all my things done, and I'm going to do it quickly because I want to get home as early as possible. I want time to go as quickly as possible from 9 to 5, which means I'm going to be busy filling it. And then once I get home at 5:30, time's going to slow down. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to plan anything. We're just going to sort of plumb the qualitative depths of our love because I got a new girlfriend. We love each other. The time spent with each other is charged by the qualities of love. Why would you ever want that to stop? Now, realistically, it's obviously going to. This is why life is a temporal apparition. But this is the thing. You can become conscious of time. You can, in recognizing the multiple forms of time's presence, you can kind of lean on one during the moment and lean on others during the moment, as long as you don't go too far in one or the other. Because there is a benefit to time as a quantity. There is a benefit to time as rationality, as you were kind of expressing. Because if you only had time as a quality, we would get nothing done. There would be no, like, if you got sick, you're screwed. No advancements, because how could you do anything? This helps establish order, right? You and I texted, let's meet at this time. It establishes order so we can have this conversation. Not necessarily a bad thing. Just be conscious of these things. This is temporics, you know?
I'm not this isn't draining my energy. You know, this seems to be native to how I work. And yes, it certainly arose with level 5. It was a thing that became interesting to me as a rational being. When I considered myself rational, then I start to go like, oh, damn, you can get better at stuff.
Yeah.
It is that
Yeah.
self-actualization drive. It's
Yeah.
definitely coming out of level 5. And up in level 6, in the sensitive and in the integral, you do start to recognize like, yes, but the problem there is that your entire existence is a process of growing, and there's
Yes.
no just being. There's no flower there. There's
Yeah.
just a thing growing, and then it stops. And then,
Yeah.
so there is certainly a balance to it, and I think that that balance can be attained in your own time, but also relationships help a lot for a person like me who would otherwise be 100% Apollonian. I
Yeah.
like to keep around people who they refuse to go into business with me. They refuse to get sucked into my fascinations.
Yeah.
And so they just pull me out. Like, it reminds me like, oh my gosh, there's all these perspectives in the world. There's all these different things going on. And I'm not like the protagonist of this whole thing. I'm just any old person here.
Yeah, that's interesting because we have the opposite dynamic going. I come from being steeped in rationalism, talking to rationalists. Very few of first of all, most of my friends I love them to death. They are morons, okay? When we're playing poker or at least before became a father, and we're drinking beers, smoking cigars, playing poker, we're not talking about integral consciousness, all right? These guys couldn't spell integral consciousness. I love them, but they're not into that stuff.
Sure,
so
sure.
I can't find almost anyone who takes this stuff seriously. I can't find anyone who takes art seriously, let alone spirituality and all this integral stuff. You know what I mean? Like half these guys, they scoff at. I mean, in fairness, that's what I used to do. Oh, I want to read stuff that's real. I want to read stuff. Oh, okay. Because apparently surface level scientific facts are more profound than the soul. Okay.
And
but
those
yeah, it's
moments
interesting.
with those guys are all they're a very real, visceral. That's a big part of what you are, who you are, how you are. You know, that's a important part of what the life of you is too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got these different things going on,
hmm
different time streams, different timelines of things going on all at once.
It is a fascinating and that I think I don't know if I think I said this in the part of the conversation that
We
got
lost.
cut. Yeah, we lost. But let's be very clear of what I think time is and try to put it as simply as
Yeah, yeah.
possible. Time is an invisible dimensional backdrop that allows space to come into existence and to unfold. And during this unfolding, it informs the movements in space or the spatial objects. So the example I used was remember a kid, right? So if my 7-year-old nephew comes and slaps me in the face, I'm going to be a whole lot more forgiving and merciful to him than I would be if you were, right? Well, why? Well, I'm appealing to a particular point, a particular time, which seems to inform my decision making. Why? Well, we know at 6 or 7, his brain isn't developed. He's got all these instincts, all this stuff. There's all these, we can come up with a trillion excuses. But now that you're, whatever, 35, 6, 7, well, those excuses have gone. Your brain is developed. You're mature. You should be in society. The point is the appealing to the time informs space. Another example I think we talked about was when I was cleaning out my mom's garage and I saw my old bike that I haven't ridden since probably I was 8 years old. It was just destroyed in rust. Okay, well, let's think very clearly what's happening here. Time's presence and efficaciousness is only rendered visible through space. And space is always in dynamic flux, which means is unfolds according to a particular time sequence. Space, time and space. Think of the words coming out of my mouth right now. First, it's this word, then that, then this. This form of temporal sequencing or unfolding is more conducive to transmitting rational knowledge because it's step by step, ordered. Each word is spatially divided from each other. Each word is dependent on the word that preceded it and will inform the word that will proceed it. The point is space-time, not space and time. Time is the stage, space is the actors running about on it. Sorry if that was a little long.
That's cool. Okay, here's the thing I've been playing around with a little bit, and I was just curious what you make of this. So like whatever you think the Big Bang is, right? Whether there's other stuff or whether it's a soul, it's the start.
Yeah.
Why did that, like, what caused, like, okay, if I were to guess what is, my best guess, the most logical, tight, reasonable thing is that there is nothing, there's no time forever, nothing ever happened, nothing. That would make the most sense. That's very tight and ordered and logical. That's what I would assume would happen. Yet, a bunch of stuff happened. Like, why?
Yeah.
What's the first cause? Like, what's that all about?
Well, I think it's of a spiritual origin. I think of what you're doing. Causality belongs to rationality, not necessarily a bad thing. And maybe I have a misunderstanding because I don't have an academic background, but it seems that Kant kind of deconstructed this, right? The critique of pure reason. What happens is in trying to attain truths of metaphysical nature, God's existence, the beginning of the world, it posits antinomies, I believe he calls them, which are just binaries, and then invokes, third aspect. It's exactly what Gebser lays out in the book, and then he realizes that it simply cannot do it. Causality is actually something that's kind of being transcended. So let's say I'm going out in the street and I see you there, right? So you see me, I see you, and you get angry. So what caused you to get angry? It could be just merely seeing me cause you to be angry. I don't know why that would be the case, but it's possible. It could be that 2 weeks ago, I yelled at you for something and you thought that was unfair, and that could be it. It could be the fact that you saw me so suddenly, and if you had a warning that I would be here, perhaps you wouldn't be that upset. Or it could be my being reminds you of a childhood trauma, and that is coming to light. So my question is, which one caused the anger or frustration to arise? It can be very difficult to do that. It can be very difficult to pick either one or the other, or pick which ones comes first. So we're talking about almost a co-arisal rather than strict causation. I think causation without the temporal element, I think is going to struggle, especially when it comes to metaphysical stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Well, sort of. Let's try this. Let's say I'm a utterly non-spiritual, non-religious. I'm a strict atheist, and I apparently, to myself, have some reason in my head why time began and why the Big Bang happened. Maybe that's just how the universe is, but why is that? What made it that way? There's still a first cause before that. Or like God made it. Okay, well, what made God? There's a thing that made God happen. Right?
I'm saying that causality is attributed through a projection. And that causality, the world does not necessarily have to follow causality as evidenced by psychology, as kind of I just outlined, and biology. What's the lesson from a lot of biological recent or
Well,
somewhat
yeah, it
recent?
doesn't have to follow
It's
causality.
acausal.
It could.
Things just sort of happen. The mutations of consciousness structures, there's no cause there. Or if it is, it's a spiritual cause. It just sort of mutates and arises discontinuously. So that it doesn't conform to causality. What I would say to that guy, to that rationalist, is that you're screwed. You've brushed up against the limitations of your mental structure, and now there's I'm being dead serious. Like
Yeah,
you're not going to do it. You're
but
just not going to
they
figure it
don't
out.
suffer anything from it, like that, because
No.
it doesn't really matter what we think, like
Mhm.
the whether there's a first cause or if we take it seriously or if we,
Yeah.
you know, well, like and like okay, let's say whatever, I'm a Jew.
Mhm.
God created. Maybe I don't think it was a guy, but I
Mhm.
think it's sort of like a divine, a perfected personality of the cosmos
Mhm.
decided it would be joyous that this happened.
Mhm.
And but joy doesn't mean what we think. It's some other
Sure.
bliss, it would
Sure.
be heavenly. It would be
Sure.
better than not having anything. It made a
Mhm.
qualitative judgment that
Yeah.
something would be better. So, but still, it's like you're stuck with this reality in which okay, here's where I go with it because I'm just an observer that doesn't attach to any like system of belief or anything. If I had to pick a suspect, I like to work with the known. I like to work with the things I see around me.
Mhm.
If anyone made the Big Bang happen, of all the suspects, I would say it's probably us. I would say that
Mhm.
probably we evolve into a thing. Like basically this that what has evolved so far is converging on understanding what reality is better.
Yeah.
So let's say we
Yeah.
got to a point where we understood reality perfectly
Mhm.
to the point that we could generate it. Other
Mhm.
than that, it's someone I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not something that's in my frame of reference, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, this whatever spiritual world the origin belongs to, and another thing with the origin, I think there's almost like two different structures kind of fighting each other right now. You have the magic structure that works in the unknown, in mystery, and
Yeah.
shrouding everything in darkness. And one of the lessons Gebser says is sometimes you have to let the dark stay in the dark. This is why he goes on a little rant about the occultists. He calls them crypto materialists because they're always trying to bring to light that which cannot. So we have the unknown here with the magic structure, and then we have the mental structures, proclivity for illumination. It wants to illuminate, but of course it can't because of its inherent limitations. So I think that's kind of, I think that could be it. Part of psychologically what's going on here
Yeah.
when people, it's kind of conspiracies are like that too.
See,
Uh,
I think it's an apparent paradox to all humans that
mhm.
anything ever happened, right? And so
Yeah,
what I see as the levels of like understanding that, I don't think anyone solved it. I just think there's levels of
yeah,
understanding it. And
yeah,
generally level five is like, well, it's just how things are. It's just the structure of things. And
yeah,
well, what caused that? Well, it's just how it is. It's the structure.
yeah,
That's fine. That's a good answer.
mm,
Level four, well, we call it God. This
yeah,
is creation. It's created. That's all. Great answer, or like,
yeah,
well, that mountain over there, there's a beast in that mountain that's the beast of chaos. And before the sun brought order to that sucker,
yeah,
there wasn't
yeah.
anything. And now there is,
Mhm. Yeah. Have
there's
you heard
better
of
and better answers, but I don't know. It seems like it seems like I suspect that we have something to do with that,
yeah, it's
or we're a
possible.
reflection of that.
I do think humans should have a higher chain like we used to on the chain of being. Not above gods, of course, because that would be egotism. But I think it's time to bring us back up from the animal strata
Oh, for sure,
because,
for sure.
because we
Yeah.
are spiritual creatures. And
I
I'm
call it a
tired of
meta level.
pretending not.
I consider life a meta level and
Yeah.
mind a meta level. And I don't
Mhm.
consider any other, well, there's this blurry area where like dogs and
Mhm.
dolphins and babies or whatever have like
Yeah.
mind, but we have mind.
Yeah.
We think everything that exists is a word. That's
Yeah.
mind. There's mind for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a level. I consider that a meta level. There's only like four meta levels in
Yeah.
existence, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Have you heard of Terre de Chardin?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is great chain stuff for sure. It's a
Yeah.
little mutated,
Well,
but
that idea of the perfect reality, that seems to be like his omega point. And maybe I'm
right.
misreading it, but that's I
I
actually
think
think
we
that's
converge with the more mystical here. Yeah, I do.
his
Yeah.
his theory is I actually think it's complementary with Gebster's. I think they're both kind of like both waves simultaneously active, like one's blue, one's red kind of thing. This idea that life's evolution does have a direction where you have uh, and, what's the word? You have a lot of wholes combining into smaller but increasingly more complex wholes. Like
Hmm.
atoms to molecules, molecules to cells, cells to whatever. Then to animals, then to humans, and then eventually, I don't know. There's going to be some point spiritually where, hey, I guess we've served our purpose down here. Yeah, it's
I
fascinating to
think
think
that
about.
this era, I'm calling it the unlimited era, but the history of
Yeah,
civilization
yeah,
is characterized by the isolated self sense. That's what mind
yeah,
is. I'm this one in here, and I
yeah.
can communicate with you and take your ideas,
Mhm.
and we share ideas. But that's the experience of history, and
Yeah,
I think that ends. I think that the individual, like, will still be here. Adam will still be here, but the
mhm,
thing that's going on at the highest level won't
mhm.
be Adam and Justin anymore.
Yeah,
It'll like we're a stepping stone towards a thing that doesn't have an individual separate self sense existing in time. Because
yeah.
as I understand, like, this
Mhm,
apparently is not even a thing that scientists really disagree with, but
mhm,
coming from like Buddhist mysticism, non-duality is
mhm.
essentially you see that you've had a mistake about what reality is your
Yeah,
whole life. And now you go, oh, no, duh, I knew that. That was wrong the whole time. Okay.
yeah,
And now you're non-dual. Now you have a fully enlightened non-dual realization.
yeah.
It
It's
might
like a
happen because you meditated. It might just happen out of nowhere.
yeah. It's like a qualitative leap. Like once you see the light, you can't really go back.
And
Do you want to get
I
into
don't have
the?
that realization, but
Yeah,
I'm able to conceptualize. I talk about it,
yeah.
it
I've had it
seems to
once,
be a real
kind
thing.
of. Yeah, I had it once, kind of. I don't think it was quite that profound, but
Yeah,
whenever I
there's
saw
a
those
one that's like
forces,
permanent, and I think like you and I have had these like glimpses. You can have glimpses.
yeah,
You can kind of see non-duality and
yeah.
conceptualize it. But there's something that happens that's exceedingly rare, but I believe that this
Mhm.
is true. Some individuals, just a thing breaks open and they can't unsee it to
Yeah,
some extent. This is coming from Buddhism, coming from like it seems to be kind of like you can look up like, what do scientists make of this, and it's not really a scientific topic. It's to do with like what you think reality is. It's a philosophical
yeah,
thing, really.
yeah.
It's a
It's more of a
philosophical
consciousness
exchange.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost I kind of wonder if someone like Muhammad or I am very ignorant on theological stuff. Whoever was the main Moses for
Yeah.
Christianity, or whoever the hell it was, I wonder if they had that sort of. It seems to me that
I would
seems almost
strongly
obvious.
suspect, yeah.
Yeah, you would strongly because they have these just vast. This isn't just the work of some moron sitting and coming up with a story. I mean, it's just incredibly vast spiritual cosmologies. It does. The problem with so I follow Rudolf Steiner's sort of work, which is interesting because he claims to take the scientific
Mhm.
theory over to the other side, if you want to call it that.
Steiner was like a pioneer of bringing science to like paranormal occult concepts, right? And like actually having
Yeah.
cogent, coherent theories. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if this is real, then it's probably something like this, right? Is that
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's what he said. He was like, I'm just going to take the method over there. I'm going to run experiments just like I do down here, and we'll see what comes out. The problem with Steiner, and John David Eber warned me about this, is that you will never hear these three words in sequence come out of his mouth. I don't know. He's trying to start. Oh, that's what it was. That's what it
right?
was.
Right.
So according to Steiner, and I guarantee Gebser would attest to this, rationality creates a sort of box
Hmm.
that seals you in and vacuums you in. So spiritual energies can't get in, right? So this is the real problem with rationalism. Spiritual energies can't get in. So this is why Gebser says you have to become transparent to the transcendent. By awakening integral consciousness, now the spiritual energies can come in and work their magic and save the world, whatever, and improve the world. But yeah,
For
that's sort of
sure.
how I view it.
There's a lot of debate, I would say, in Integral about how much you need to abandon of rational and how much you need to because like we all like it seems like people interested in this are very steeped in rational. We're very
Yeah,
solid on our rational level. We're
yeah,
very skeptical and all that.
yeah.
And it's true, like you do have to kind of broaden out from that, and you do have to recognize some of it as being like unhealthy and non-functional and maybe even just offensive, whatever the
Mhm.
criteria is of whatever level you're at. But yeah, rationality is like a necessary stepping stone, and it looks like the end of the development in a lot of ways, but there's still much more to go because there can be multiple rational perspectives that begin to disagree with each other, and you now
Yeah.
need more tools
Yeah.
to
Well, that's the a perspectival, right? The rationality is all about perspectivity, right? So the postmodernists, as much as I love to just rip them, they actually kind of got this right with this idea of that's your perspective. Now, I think they employ it cynically,
Yeah.
and through resentment, but that's just my personal opinion. But they are kind of right about this in connecting rationality to perspective. Now, take Picasso. Picasso's a great integral guy. He came up with the maxim for integral consciousness, which is "I do not seek, I find," and you can tell integral consciousness sort of sings through him with his paintings because what he does is he takes let's say I'm painting you, a very beautiful
Of course.
object to paint, yes. So I take you from this perspective, right? So I have a little sketch, okay. So I notice a certain hue, a certain shade, a certain something. So I take the time, emphasis on the time, to walk around and do a different perspective, right? And I find, this shade connects with this hue right here. Do the same thing, do the same thing. And then you present them all simultaneously. That is the a perspectival. So an a perspectival look at history, for example, wouldn't just be first Adam killed Justin, then Justin's wife killed Adam, then the two nations started warring, right? It's not that that's bad. We can keep that, but also view like almost like a Spangler view of history where you're trying to find the qualitative immanence of a country. So for America and Western civilization, it would be perspectivity or space. That's why we like freedom. That's why we like order and all this stuff. For the Chinese, it would be the Tao, right? The way. For the Christians, it would be whatever. So you can have all of these simultaneously, and that's the a perspectival. So, you have to have perspectivity, but you have to update it as well. The best way to break out of the either or thinking is recognizing that as I've repeated a trillion times in this video, both of the binaries, both things you're positing, are simultaneously present and efficacious. They belong to an integral complementary whole. And the projection of one or the other, it really is a matter of projection. It's exactly that. Not necessarily a bad thing, because it's more than necessary in science. You just can't have it without. You can't have science without. I don't know what to tell you. But recognize, you are both an individual and a collective simultaneously, just as the molecule is both a whole and a part simultaneously. It's part of the cell and the whole thing onto its own right. That's the best way of doing it, by just saying, look, they're both present, they're both here. How do I see through it and recognize that?
We have a sort of X and Y axis to that sort of relationship where we have holons levels, and holons are sort of equivalent. Like they're levels of holons, right? But then we also have quadrants. Like every holon exists in four quadrants. There's four different ways you can view it. And they're sort of illusions, but they're intrinsic to the human mind and we can't escape them, which is how we conjugate interior, exterior, group, or individual. So pointing out that like, am I just the child of my family or the child of my nation? Yes, that's actually what I actually am. Like you can see me 100% as that. You can also see me as a totally unique snowflake, a complete individual. I'm the only one there is. It's just me. I'm the only one experiencing me. That's it. That's also true. It's all true. There's just four different perspectives.
Yeah, that is true. It's not that the individual stuff is wrong. It's just you also belong to a collective.
And a really one way that I've kind of tried to put what non-duality is that those four quadrants that I'm in here, the world's out there, it's just me, I'm an isolated self. Those are the very things that are transcended in the non-dual state realization. The quadrants are seen to be an illusion of the mind.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, everything we do and our whole relationship with the world is in the quadrants. It just so happens that is just a layer of the onion. It's not the fundamental primal truth that, like, before the stuff that's happening happens, there's a thing experiencing. And that's the common to all beings, and we're all interconnected as that thing. And we say namaste to one another, acknowledging that this is the case. Interconnectedness, non-duality. I don't know.
I agree. I think that's why, like, we brought up Heidegger earlier. Heidegger does a great job of like bringing you back down from the clouds back into reality and saying, hey, like we're not disconnected. The clearing, kind of like we talked about earlier. And I think what Gebser is saying is, it kind of reminds me of that Heidegger. What's that Heidegger quote when he says the carpenter has a pre-philosophical understanding of what it means to be a carpenter, where you're not just like a philosopher, like you, that a lot of that stuff comes after the fact. Like a lot of your, pretty much everything rational comes after the fact. It comes after you receive that sense input, not necessarily a bad thing,
Right.
but it becomes a bad thing, right? And once you,
Well, I mean, in what we call it rationalizing. We rationalize things.
yeah, and it can,
Like, Dad, why do you drink? I'll tell you why, you know?
yeah, exactly. Because if I
It won't be the
don't,
truth.
I'll be in a bad mood, something like that.
Yeah.
But it can become a bad thing because, like Heidegger, I know we talked about this earlier, but take Jordan Peterson in the Maps of Meaning, right? I'll be honest, I haven't read the book. I heard someone else kind of read it for me, so I was like, fine. But he posits.
Well, and he presented on it for 10 years.
Yes,
so
yes. I'm not the
get the-
biggest fan of him, but I also think it's funny when you mention his name and the atheists, they're like Pavlov's dog. They're just like, I hate Jordan Peterson. I'm like, okay, dude. But anyways, he posits the object and the meaning, right? So
These
this
days,
is,
I would also say that, but I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of his earlier stuff.
yeah, some of his more
These
reasonable
days, I would
stuff.
be with those atheists, be like, "Oh, come on, just
Yeah.
admit you're Christian now, or don't,
No,
or
yeah,
say you're
yeah,
not.
that's true.
Say
I
one or
also-
the other. Damn it!
I saw Ken Wilber actually talking about this.
Oh, cool.
It was talking. It was like a debate between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, and essentially, I don't know why Jordan couldn't just say this, but he was talking about like the mythical structure and like the soul and how to interpreting the Bible from that perspective.
That's what he'll
And
do.
And Sam Harris is a rationalist, so he's just saying, no, this either happened or it didn't, right? And
Yes.
for whatever reason, they couldn't just say that. They couldn't just
Oh,
be
for
like,
sure.
oh, we're talking about, and that's what Ken
Those
Wilber
two
did.
guys, they're two blocks that don't go
Yes.
together. They're
Ken-
cool by themselves, but when you put them together, the system fails. It sucks.
Yeah.
I
And then the
hate
guy-
whenever
the-
they talk to each other.
The interviewer was just like, Ken, can you clear this up? And Ken just explained like exactly what I just explained, like in 10 seconds. He goes, yeah, that's all they're doing. Like it's so much of this can be just rendered transparent and be like, okay, let's just be clear of what we're talking about. Okay, but Peterson. So we have,
And by the way, I've had that discussion with AI Jordan Peterson as well.
really,
Yeah, and I haven't done. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
we have the object and the meaning, right? So let's use the example he uses. I open the mailbox and I see a letter in there. Let's say it's an admissions letter. So we have the object, which is the paper, and the meaning, the admissions sort of aspect to it. There is a fatal flaw being made here that rationalists fundamentally fall into all the time. This division between object and meaning is not only an artificial projection at this point, it's after the fact. You already know the admission letter is the admission letter because of what Heidegger describes as the clearing, which is a sort of aspatial, kind of pre-equipped ontological faculty that allows objects to be rendered intelligible. It allows objects to come into our being and appear meaningful. So when I'm walking through the tree and it's dark, can't see anything, I reach a clearing, the sunlight comes in, and now I see there are ants, there are trees, there's sap, there's rocks. It gets a little deeper than this. If you want, we can go into it. But the point is, now we know these objects are these objects. So when I open the mailbox and I see the admissions letter, the object and the meaning are co-present and efficacious. It is only after the fact that we impose space between this and the meaning, and now we do the traditional triangular thought of rationalism. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but it becomes a bad thing when you exclusively stick with this in areas, as Heidegger explains, where it doesn't belong. You have to kill your rationalism. Come back to the world. Get out of the clouds.
I'm not understanding the analogy though. Like, what's the so that this person regards the physical letter and ink and everything as different from the purpose behind its.
So Peterson, when you have the object meaning divided from each other, in which one is not the other, he seems to think that the meaning and object are isolated, separated, and that the meaning must come from some other source than the object. But when I open the mailbox and I see the admissions letter, it appears to me as an admissions letter, as a full thing. When I'm talking to you and I see my laptop, it's not just some hunk of metal. It's not just this random assortment of parts. It appears as a laptop with certain functions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The object and the meaning are co-present.
Yeah, we have this thing, and so there's a really confusing thing about reality, which is that higher levels can reorder lower levels on
Yeah.
purpose. So I can take wood pulp and make a letter, out of it. That's confusing because what is that letter now? It's not a tree anymore. It's not a
Hmm.
dead tree. It's a totally different thing. It's actually a human thing.
Yeah.
It's an artifact of humanity shaped
Yeah.
out of a tree bit. So that's confusing because you're like, what is the nature of this thing?
Well, think about what I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but you just did it right there. When you see the letter on the document, it doesn't appear to you as that immediately. You've just imposed space between yourself and the letter, and now you're thinking about it. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. But if we were to go down your line of logic here, and take it to its conclusion, we would have no idea what anything means. I wouldn't even know what these letters mean or what it is ontologically. It sounds nice and it sounds like we're reaching some deep truth, but after a while, you're just rendering yourself in a state of paralysis by analysis where no one knows everything. You almost get into this sort of postmodern nothing
Well,
means anything.
the way out of that swamp is to realize is if I walk around and point at things, I'm going to see a bunch of human artifacts. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to see the trees, the houses, the everything's human artifacts. So I'm not really experiencing the planet Earth. So it might be confusing to me that I might not intuit the existence of holonic levels of reality because I don't experience stars. I don't actually understand what they are until I go and study. So they
Mhm.
don't seem fundamental and intrinsic to what reality is, right? And I only learned recently what molecules are. That wasn't part of my experience. So that it's all just levels is really counterintuitive to us because when I deal with bugs, they're bugs in the context of a human civilization. I'm not on the planet when arthropods came out.
Yeah.
So they have like a kind of new meaning that because human beings have reordered the entire surface of the planet except for like a
Mhm.
couple of spots at
Yeah.
this point. And so the entire planet, the surface of the planet is essentially a human artifact.
Yeah, that kind of touches on
It's
Schrodinger's
confusing.
cat. The idea
We've
that
projected
consciousness.
ourselves onto the surface of the planet Earth,
No, that's exactly
like
right. The
completely.
consciousness plays the decisive factor in like ensuring the ontological validity of anything, right? So take that with quantum logic, with that example with the dryer. If the dryer is both a dryer and a symbol for modernity at the same time, well, how do I know which one is which? Well, you only know that after consciousness is invoked. Right? It's a consciousness itself, including the spatial object, not just the spatial object, but consciousness that assures that validity. And I think that's Gebser's point here is that the world being, as real it is to us as people who appreciate science and rationality, it was just as real to the magic structure. They projected their own consciousness onto the world, and
Mhm.
as such, the world kind of became that. So the electron becomes the electron when you measure it as such. It's
And
totally a
see,
key to changing your attitude, by the way, too.
if if the letter in the mail was
Mhm.
an axe on the ground, it would the analysis would be different. The letter is a phenomenon pertaining to the lower right quadrant of reality. It
Mhm.
isn't what it's made of doesn't matter. It could be chiseled on a stone. It would still what it's doing is it's allowing you into an institution through a legal procedure. It's
Hmm.
following the rules of human civilization.
Yeah.
It's not even a if it were a personal correspondence, it would be like more of a lower left phenomenon. But
Yeah.
it was carried by the postal service, lower right. It's a collective system deal going on.
Yeah.
So that's where we would place a letter, for example, as one thing. Like we can look at a letter in a zillion different ways, right? And I think what you're criticizing is the postmodern view of the letter, where you're breaking it into a zillion different things when all it was admission to an institution. Is that
Yeah. It's
anywhere?
it's the thinking about the object's meaning. Do that. That's fine. But let's take my daughter, for example. I walk into the room, I see my daughter, and I say, "Oh my God, you're getting so big," right? So the rational interpretation or the rational way of viewing this would be I walk into the room, see my daughter, and then I pause and post space between me and her and think about it and go, what is bigness? Ah, bigness is this, and then check and do the rational thing, right? But that's not really what happened, was it? Rather, her bigness, if you will, was revealed to me in the space of encounter between entities in an experiential sense. Not only does this object exist, because if it was just the object, that would be science. That wouldn't really be philosophy, would it? It's not just that. It's that the object also carries with it a meaning simultaneously. And I guess that's just kind of the point I'm trying to make. But I guess there can be advantages of thinking about meaning.
We could do a whole episode again on postmodernism too, but just kind of my thoughts on all that is like Jordan Peterson now, I find like when I examine Jordan Peterson now, I find that what he's doing at root is apologism.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Whatever. I mean, it seems to be he enjoys it and it makes people happy and he makes a lot of money. So cool. But what here's the funny thing. When he started out, if I were to describe what he's doing, like he goes up on a stage and does what? I would say he does postmodernism. And he talks about how like we hate all the and the reason why if you talk to most people who say I hate postmodernists, it's influenced by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And I would say that what he does is what specifically does that word mean?
I actually agree. When it comes to, it's funny too, because everyone's biased, right? And he's kind of has that right wing bias. So when it comes to like attacking the left, we're not doing any of this. Well, what does that mean? And what does woke mean? And what is no, that all of a sudden then we're being as clear as day. But when he's arguing, like kind of like you said, apologism, you're exactly right. He does get into this. We can't even have a debate anymore because we're just arguing semantics all day. And no anything, everything's relative, everything's open to interpretation, all this stuff.
And you feel it palpably because it's sometimes when you're consuming his content, you're like, oh God, nothing's happened for a long time.
Yes.
Like nothing has advanced. What I thought he was going to do, there was a promise to this show or this discussion, But
it reminds me of that Nietzsche quote where he says, those who know they are profound strive for clarity, and those who want to seem profound to the crowd strive for obscurity.
Sure.
I think he went from being maybe not profound to the level of like a Wilbur or Gebser or anything like that, but he was clearly spoken and he made his points clearly, even if you disagree with them. It's like, okay, this guy has a brain. I think what problem did he go through? He had like a benzo addiction because he got sick. I think that really affected him.
Stuff.
And I also think he seemed to be, if not a rationalist, he seemed to be an atheist or skeptical at least.
I believe he probably is an atheist in real life. Yeah.
But now, like you said, like he kind of now he's gone full on apologetics. Like that's a very quick shift for such a profound, and to have all that happen in the public eye.
Yeah. I think to me, it's just, I don't like have any, I don't think there's like some conspiracy or something. I just think it's as simple as like the people who are really responding to him and communicating with him and making sense to him and loving him. There was this back and forth, and he kind of found himself in that territory more and more. The cheers were louder when he was doing the apologetics,
Yeah.
And what started it, even though he was just doing postmodernism, what started it was a reaction to the excesses of the left, right? That's why he got big, and then he remained big by continuing along like, okay, we're anti-left thing. Even though, like, essentially what he is a very leftist, like what he came from, it would seem, is a pretty leftist kind of orientation, and his expertise is kind of in postmodernism.
Yeah, so, to an extent, yeah.
Because you're looking at the hardcore deconstructionists and to the ones who are very troubled, and it's like, I think that at this point we take postmodernism almost for granted. Like that everyone in our culture has an amount of postmodernism going on. They're deconstructing, they're assuming that their perspective isn't the primacy. Yeah. Couldn't figure out how to conjugate that word.
Peterson's an interesting I think I do respect him to an extent, if for no other reason that he didn't back down to the mob on that initial video where I think that
he was an inspiring character for sure. I mean, how could you not be inspired by him?
It's funny. Have you read his 12 Rules for Life?
I may have. I don't know whether I read it or not. I think I just read summaries of it.
Yeah, I haven't, but I was at a buddy's house years ago and he had it, and I was like, well, let's see what this is. I've never read a Jordan Peterson book, and I was reading it and I was like, who finds this profound? It's like a Ryan Holiday book. Like, who finds this profound? Some of this is
lots of people do, man.
Yeah,
lots of people really do. I don't know. Yeah, it's a condensation of kind of the more practical aspects of what he talks about. I don't know. But like Benjamin Franklin did that. Like smart people often got to make like what are the like six things to keep in mind to do my philosophy?
Well,
What are
I'm
the
fine with that. It, like if I
agreements?
listen to Ben Franklin, because Ben Franklin's Ben Franklin, it's just the
Yeah.
quality of the
Yeah.
rules. Like some of these rules are so. I mean,
Do you know that I actually did a video review of Jordan Peterson's 12
oh,
rules?
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's old and it's cheesy, but yeah, check it out if you want. I
Oh,
kind
okay.
of
I
just
will check
walk
that
through
out.
each rule and I try to I think at that point I had not read it at all, so I was just trying to guess what they were and what he would think they mean. It was
Yeah.
fun. We had fun.
It's funny too, because this might be weird, but I like when I'm bored sometimes, I just like to go on Goodreads and just read 1-star book reviews of
Oh,
like
sure.
oh, it's so fun. So I typed in Jordan Peterson one day because I was like, oh yeah, I could check out what they have to say. And the problem with a figure like him is he's so politically polarized that they don't actually review the book; they review the man,
Mhm.
and it's very frustrating from that perspective because there are tons of
Goodreads is pretty
critiques.
community-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like even on his apologetics level, I mean, I'm the farthest thing from a rationalist, and even I sympathize with them sometimes because they're just trying to ask him like a straightforward question, and instead of giving him a straightforward answer or just saying I'm not going to answer it because it's a false binary or whatever, he has to go on these like long like symbolic. It's not necessarily a
And
bad
that's when he's
thing.
being as postmodern as he
Yes,
could possibly be.
yes. Well, yeah, what he's doing is he's wielding suddenly rationality, not to illuminate the world and to participate in the natural order of the world, but to obscure the world, right? So now all of a sudden words
Yeah.
don't mean anything. It's just
Well, because
rationalism gone
people
too
are
far.
coming to him saying, I want you to be an authority on something and to tell
Yeah,
me what your authoritative thing is on that. And then
yeah,
he's coming back, well, who am I? Who are you? Why don't you know? It's like,
yeah, yeah. And it's
cool.
also weird too because he. I mean, if he didn't know any better, you'd think he was like Young's lover back in a. He loves Young more than I love
Right. He
Gebser.
talks about him a lot. Yeah.
And John, I was going through. John did John David Ebert. That is, he did a little book review of Jordan Peterson, and he was saying that rather astonishingly, he had never heard of Joseph Campbell.
Hmm.
I don't understand how. I
Wait,
don't
Jordan
understand.
Peterson hadn't?
Correct. I don't understand how
Okay.
you could focus so much on archetypes in
Right.
this sort of journey that the psyche goes through, and not. This is like I don't know. This is like being a huge NBA fan and not knowing who Kobe Bryant is. It's just like,
Well, I mean, the thing about Campbell, actually, this came up like 2 days ago. He's a meme now. Everyone knows who Campbell is.
yeah,
He's on Rick and Morty. Like everyone
yeah.
knows who Campbell is.
Well,
If
that
you
you
don't
could
know
thank
anything,
George
you know, okay,
Lucas.
there's like a hero's journey and there's all these
Yeah,
characters that kind of appear and there's a
yeah,
universality story. Everyone knows that.
yeah. It's
I
astonishing.
thought,
It's astonishing. It just I don't get it. I don't get it. But
and I
he's a
know,
powerful
as I
figure.
understand, there's a great deal more subtlety to his work. Well,
Yes.
I'm pretty ignorant of that. I
Yeah.
don't know a whole lot about it.
Oh,
But
give the hero with 1,000 faces a shot.
yeah,
That's a good one. That's a
well,
good one.
and the thing is, like, I believe, I'll go ahead and test this. I do it all the time. I believe that I'll read that and I'll find it rehashing stuff that I already know the
Yeah,
whole time.
probably.
Not that it didn't create that stuff, but
Yeah.
just that it's so permeated because I've read 48 books that referenced that one and
Hmm.
described it. At a certain
Yeah.
point, does anyone in today's culture need to read Charles Darwin's book? Like, is
Yeah.
that even necessary? Yeah, I don't know. I did it, so I'm biased. I don't know, but
Hmm.
probably not. I think we all, if you don't know what evolution is, but by process of natural selection, biological evolution, you probably are doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
But we all could know like how
Yeah.
that works, what it is. Yeah, it's
No, I
out
kind of
there.
agree with you. If you already know it, I mean, if you're familiar with Young, I can't imagine any of that would be super new. Maybe the
Right, it
journey
wouldn't be
itself,
crazy
maybe
new.
like the
Yeah,
actual, but even then, like you could just look it up. It
yeah.
doesn't take a while, but he was really good. He really kind of changed me on myth. Him and Gebser really have made me have a new respect for myth because I had an old rationalist. Myth is just irrational stories that idiots came up with to control people. It was
Wish fulfillment.
completely,
Yeah.
complete ridiculous, wrong understanding of it. And I realized, and even the weird thing about Campbell is you could argue that he's actually a little bit of a rationalist. because he takes myth and he interprets everything to the psyche or to the ego or the self. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that's one way of understanding understanding myth on its own terms. Remember what we said earlier about time, right? So the rationalists make the mistake of imposing rationality on past man throughout history, but that simply wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So rationality, when you impose space and you do all these reflections and representations, that wasn't a thing back then. Remember, Zeus was an active agent. So Gebser almost takes a different view. The people back then, they weren't dealing with symbolism. Symbolism comes after the fact with rationality, after it's trying to interpret things.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Which is a really fascinating way of looking at things. It's
Well,
why
like another way of putting it too is you like a little kid is like obsessed with its blanket or whatever, and they don't get why they're doing that or what it means. You can ask them questions, and it's like they haven't even asked themselves these questions.
Yeah,
it is special. It is magic. It does protect them, but they don't outright think that. It's known. It is known.
They know it intuitively. Yeah, so, they just know it.
How lore
That's exactly
works.
right.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting that like Campbell, who's sort of held up as just the kind of apex, the Da Vinci, if you will, of myth. To an extent, he's almost misunderstanding it, at least to an extent. It's not that his way of doing things is wrong necessarily. It's just not the only way. And it's not really meeting them on its own terms. But,
He's the name behind all that at this point. Like his name is associated with that. So that's kind of, I mean, he's just a dude with good, cool thoughts on reality.
It's cool because these guys, they're very rational, and then they take these non-rational things very seriously, which I appreciate. Yeah, man.
Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and sign off here.
Okay.
It's been Adam from Unthink Me, and
I am Justin from Idols of the Cave. I wanted to say thank you to the Unthink Me community. Sorry for cutting you off there, but you guys have been super kind to me, super gracious with me on the first video we did. And just know that I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys some more. Thank you guys again for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, Adam, for having me on. Thank you for saying yes. I appreciate that you took the time. Thank you also for being accommodating with time. As a new father, things can be a little hectic sometimes. I really do appreciate it. I had a blast with this conversation. So if you want to keep doing more and make this a somewhat semi-regular thing, I'm all down, my friend. I thought this was great. So thank you guys again. Really, I really do appreciate it.
Same page club over here. And, let us know in the comments where you want us to go with this. I feel like we've opened up about like 4 potential trajectories for our next go around, and I would like us all to maybe hope that at some point in the near future we'll just have this extraordinary sense of being very, very lucky. And I can't really explain why, but it just goes on for a long time. And oh my gosh, how lucky was this? This is very, very lucky, and you just feel that it like permeates everything. That's that's my hope for our future right now. So
I'm kind of with you on that one too.
Let's all get lucky.
Let's have the spiritual world come in and increase our luck.
Draw it in, bring it, allow it to happen, give it permission to infuse your life. You know what though? I mean, just on a rational level, you're damn lucky, you out there. You're lucky as heck.
Yeah. You
right?
are,
Think
man.
all this stuff you got. You're doing great.
You are. There's a lot of
live in it.
Unfortunately, the word privilege has kind of been overused, but really, man, there's a lot of privileges out in the world.
Super privileged. It's wonderful.
Everyone likes to focus on the dark, but you know what? The yin and the yang.
Driving is a privilege.
Yes.
You got that. Most of you got that.
Yeah, having functioning eyes and ears, having all
privilege.
2 arms, 2 legs. There you go.
Cool. You can move
the
around.
World's a beautiful place, man. You just got to look for it.
You have Totino's pizza rolls. You guys.
That's a good point. Yeah, some bagel bites. Think about what our ancestors would do. Oh, that's another thing.
Oh God, I know it. Yep.
Well, yeah, I think it's funny because we take spirituality seriously, right? So we have all this like high, super complex, like unfathomably complex spiritual stuff going on, and then down here we have like ridiculous, irreverent internet memes and bagel bites and like monster. I just think that's the funniest dichotomy sometimes.
Oh yeah, I love pooping so much. Pooping feels so good. Oh gosh,
we talk about it and we just go like
every
the
day.
Dumbest memes.
Yeah, you gotta love the whole pyramid. It's a good time.
Great.
It's a good trip.
Okay, I hope the time topic is okay. I hope I didn't feel like I was bullying you into a certain topic or whatever.
You got time topicked.
Yeah.
I have this inside joke with my friends that for a super long time where you get a VHS copy of the movie Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicle Time Cop, where he is a cop who travels through time to stop time traveling bad guys.
Wow.
And you hide the tape somewhere. It's like Easter. You hide the tape somewhere in their house. You put it in the toaster. You stick it inside their pillowcase. On top of you got a ceiling fan up there. I'd stick it on there. One day you're gonna turn that on. It's gonna go plack. It's gonna land on the. So then when you find the time cop, you're like, what the hell is this? And you're like looking at it. It's like, and then I pop up and I go, you got Time Cop. And what that means is you have to watch Time Cop, and I don't have to watch it with you. You just have to watch it and experience the whole thing again.
Is that the worst movie you've ever seen? Yeah, we watched. Have you ever heard of Birdemic?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, I showed my girlfriend that like a month ago, and I had a few beers. I had a great time with that one, man. That was
Totally.
so. Oh, I
That
forgot how
inhabits
bad
the
it
zone
was.
where it's not really a movie.
Yeah, yeah,
That's like some bros with a camera and
yeah,
a program on their computer.
and maybe like a mental challenge too.
And those can
Because
be like the part of those that's really fun is when you see that they actually did have a scene that like took a lot of effort and you try to imagine what they thought their efforts would produce compared to like what you're seeing and you notice like they bothered.
you have like the PS1 birds.
Yeah, that one's all about the butterfly birds, which are super scary. I mean, I can see why that would scare you.
Oh, yeah, those are
It's
funny,
not all
man.
that different than the visual effects in Stephen King's Langoliers, like made for TV. It's like on an airplane and there's these little cheese graters that eat the universe and they're going to eat you. Actually, that's about time. They get caught in a time stop. The time's frozen and they don't know
Mhm.
why. And it's because they've left somehow their stupid airplane left time. And so now it's just in a timeless place, and the Langoliers will detect that, and they'll be like, "Hey, there's stuff in the timeless. There's not supposed to be anything here." So then they come and dispose of it.
That sounds like what happened to Amelia Earhart.
Pretty
I
serious.
haven't laughed since 2007. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and that's on the journal. I
yeah,
had a laugh today. I don't remember what
yeah.
it was about.
That's when I saw a dead cat on the road. And I thought, huh, that was funny. Very serious person.
The dead cat does it for you.
No.
Good golly. When the tail gives you that like little twitch, like maybe I'll
Yeah.
make it. No.
I don't know how this happened, but I remember in high school, me and my buddy snuck off to go get intoxicated somehow. And we came back like hours later, and you just saw his cat hanging from like the garage.
Oh
It
yeah.
was so bad. I felt so bad. I couldn't even I mean, this is when I was really in my irreverent, kind of edgy high school phase. And I was like, I can't even make fun of you right now.
Wait,
This is
so
like sad.
did the cat just blow it, or did a person get it, or
No,
a
I don't.
dog?
I don't know.
It just
To this day,
was.
it's just like, it looked like you hung a human being and it was just
Yeah,
kind of hanging there. And I was like,
dangling.
how in the world? I felt bad for that, but hey, that's life, I guess.
Wow, yeah, whole lot of life right there.
Yeah, that's the last time I laughed, actually. Yeah.
Always the cats.
Oh, yeah, I laugh at my cat when she tries to like get up in one go because she's so fat and obese that that's always
It's a
funny.
two-stage. Got to deploy the landing gear first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
like bleh.